Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Tiger Paul Craven, and I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight to chop it up about Clemson football, to chop it up about spring practice that is in full flex here in Clemson, South Carolina. We got a big show for you guys tonight. Myself and Jordan Bowman have a ton to talk about tonight. But before we get into that, if you are not subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Please hit that like button for us. This is a live video. The likes really help the live videos, and we appreciate that as well. And as always, you can use the super chat feature throughout the show. And the Voice of College Football, the Mark Rogers brand, has launched merch. They have coffee cups, they have sweatshirts, they got t-shirts, they got all sorts of things that I'm sure you guys will be interested in. Please go to the main channel and visit the Voice of College Football brand and support the channel that way as well. That helps me and Jordan as well. There are, numerous team channels out here that you guys can visit as well. But without further ado, I will bring on fan favorite, my co-host, Jordan Bowman tonight, and we will get into tonight's show. Jordan, how you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good, man. Just getting back into the swing of things. Spring break was awesome. Good, nice to kind of get that week off. But I'm happy I got that week to recharge. I've been feeling really good this week. Been really productive, like strangely. People that follow me on Twitter wouldn't think it because I've been all over Twitter this week too. But I've just been really energized, and so I'm really excited to talk about. Talk about what we have to talk about because there's quite a bit, and we got a really fun segment that I think that the comment section will enjoy too.
Yeah, we got tons of stuff to talk about tonight, and we do have a fun segment tonight that we can involve the comment section in. We will get to that a little bit later. But before we get into all of that, I'm sure you enjoyed your spring break, much like the Clemson football players did. Just kind of getting a break, getting away from school, getting away from football. How did you spend your spring break, Jordan?
Last week, as last week on the show, I was at home.
Yep.
Spring break coincided with my mom's birthday. I was in town for that. And then I hung out with a bunch of old friends from back home, and so that was really cool over the weekend. And then headed back. So I didn't do anything too special. I didn't feel like hitting the beach, mostly because I didn't want to spend that money.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
But no, it was really good to just kind of chill, and that's kind of what I did. So feels good. I'm glad to be back.
yeah, for sure. I apologize for the show being later than it was scheduled tonight. I know we were scheduled for 9 p.m. tonight. Unfortunately, it took me a little longer to get home from my daughter's softball practice, and softball is in full swing for me. And my daughter is obviously in softball. She's in 12U. She's loving it. She's playing well. She's hitting well. All things are going well there. So I do apologize for the show getting started a little bit later than normal. We will be at the 9 o'clock block for the next couple months because of my daughter's 12U softball. So hopefully I can try to get it a little more dialed in than it is tonight. But without further ado, we will get into tonight's show. I appreciate everybody getting in here right now. I think we have 18 people, Jordan, in the live chat right now, which is pretty amazing for us. We appreciate everybody getting in here right now, and we will start with a shout out to the chat. We got WB2DX in the chat. If you ain't Tigers fan, you ain't chit. According to WB2XD, I couldn't agree more. Brady Holmes is in here. Let's see, who else do we have in here tonight? We got Teddy Knows Best in here tonight. Thank you for getting in here. Jamarius Payne is in here. Who else? Steel Gamble is in here. Shipley and Maffa will get 20 carries apiece against the Coots. I can already see it. Let's hope so. John Sarian is in here. He's one of our guys that are in here pretty regularly in our show. And Show Out Gaming is in here. Who else? My wife is in here, Courtney Craven. You guys go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We bring this live show to you guys every week. It's normally at 7 p.m., but we have changed it for the next couple months. It will be 9 p.m. Due to my daughter's 12U softball. Taco Gaming's in here, and he says he just got off work. I understand Taco Gaming. Look, I can relate 100%. And then Bryce is in here as well. So thank you guys for getting in here. Thank you guys for showing out and supporting the show by getting in here and commenting in the comment section. We got a great show for you guys tonight. Make no mistake about it. We got a really cool segment that Jordan brought up to me earlier today, and I'll let you guys know what that is here in a moment. But before we get into all of that, it's just good to be in the full swing of spring practice, right, Jordan?
Absolutely.
It's good to see the interviews. It's good to see the coaches talking. It's good to see the players talking. There's a lot of energy around the Clemson program right now. What do you make of this Clemson team and the energy that's kind of around the Clemson program right now? I know there's a lot of outside noise, and there has been for the past couple years. The past 2 seasons for Clemson has been, kind of considered down years, if you will, for Clemson football. Obviously, we have won double-digit games since 2011, and that's kind of our claim to fame right now. However, stock on Clemson is kind of down right now. People in the national media are down on Clemson. They're really high on Florida State. It seems to be the tide has turned in the ACC, at least when it comes to the opinion of the national media and how the ACC will play out in 2023. So what's kind of your take on the energy around the program heading into 2023 and all the hype that you hear around Florida State and all the people, quote unquote, selling stock on Clemson heading into 2023?
Well, to your point, yeah, there's been a ton of noise, just on the outside about Clemson and a lot of doubt and questions about the direction of the program.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that the coaches, the players, the support staff, everybody in that building is aware of it. And
absolutely.
When you look at how this team has operated and how they've carried themselves going into this, this off season and how they've handled the beginning, the early parts of spring practice, I think there's a renewed sense of we have something to prove here. Clemson has always been a program that is, kind of, I wouldn't say fed off of the outside noise because they can motivate themselves internally as well, but they do get off from feeling doubted, and that's something that Dabo has definitely cultivated within the program, and they kind of draw on it when possible to get kind of that extra sense of purpose and a renewed sense of I'm trying to think of the word. A renewed sense of, the word. I already said purpose, so I can't use it again. But
I think it's a renewed determination within the team.
There we go. Yeah,
I think determination is the key word there, and I think this Clemson team has displayed that pretty clearly this past spring. Right? You look at the players interviewing with the media. This spring, you look at the players, that have come back. You got an XT, you got a Tyler Davis, you have, all the guys, Sheridan Jones. You got guys in the secondary that return. You got guys along the defensive line that return. You have guys that return for a purpose in this Clemson defense and in this Clemson team. Regardless, right? Just this Clemson team as a whole, and I think they came in with a purpose this spring, and I think that is manifesting itself into and really injecting itself into kind of the attitude of this team going into spring and going into summer workouts, and I think that will carry over into fall camp and into the season. And there's a lot of unfinished business talk with this Clemson team. There's a lot of, we didn't perform in the manner that we wanted to, especially on the defensive side of the ball for the Clemson team this past season, right? Clemson's defense, if everybody remembers back to last spring, into summer, and into fall camp, Clemson's defense was really touted as one of the premier defenses heading into last season, and they really didn't perform that way for a lot of last season. They got exposed against a Wake Forest. They got exposed against a Notre Dame. They had a rough game against South Carolina, right? 3 games that we lost, 3 games that we could, or not 3 games that we totally lost. We won against Wake Forest, right? We lost against Notre Dame. We lost against South Carolina. But those 2 games we could have won, right? But especially a Notre Dame game where we absolutely got manhandled, especially on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball, right? Really in the trenches. So I think this Clemson team has come into spring with a renewed sense of urgency, and they understand, what is expected of them and what it's going to take to get to where they want to go in the 2023 season.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're just kind of feeding on that. And I think when you couple that with the changes, obviously the big change on offense, um, and just some of the I think the experiences and the learned and the shared learning experiences that this team went through last year, I, I think there's a renewed sense of confidence, and on both sides of the ball, uh, not just the players but the coaches. I mean, you take a guy like Wes Goodwin. I mean, you talked about how the defense underperformed. I think
Yeah,
Wes has definitely, he went through his share of learning curves last season, and
100%. Yeah.
I think he's going to use those experiences last year that to make him a better coach or make him a better leader. Uh, because I think he's a brilliant mind. I still believe that. I think he's definitely got a bright future in college football. But just being able to demand more of his players and expect their absolute best at all times, and kind of being able to bring that out of them, like his predecessor was able to do, is I think that's kind of the next step for him. And I think he's definitely taken steps, and just through from interviews and the way he's talked about it, he's definitely taking those steps uh, to get more out of his guys. So I think the entire program uh, has learned from the really the past 2 seasons, especially the players that were there for both years. They're ready to get back to what they signed up for when they committed to Clemson. When you go back to the Trevor Lawrences and Deshaun Watsons and those teams, they had fun. They won, and it was great. But they also had fun, and they enjoyed what they were doing. And I think we'll kind of get into that when we talk about Kyle Richardson's comments this offseason. Sorry, this past week. Um, but this team really needs to feel that joy again, and I think that's kind of what they're getting back to.
Yeah, I think it's really about Clemson finding their joy again. I think it's finding their purpose. I think it's finding, just that team atmosphere that's really kind of been felt this spring. I just feel like there's a renewed sense of urgency with this group of guys heading into spring. There really just is, both on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll get we talked a lot about the defensive side of the ball last episode. I think we'll talk a lot more about the offensive side of the ball in this episode, and it'll really between last episode and this episode, we'll really get a feel of kind of the team's thought process and their really renewed sense of purpose heading into the 2023 season. And I think it's super important to focus on that. But before we get into that, what is your take on all of the hype around Florida State? And they really are getting, they're kind of the media darlings, I guess, if you will, when it comes to the ACC. So we all know, as fans of the ACC, everybody in here is probably a Clemson fan or somebody that is interested in Clemson in some type of way because they're tuning into this show. And this is the All In Show. It's all about Clemson. It's all about Clemson football. So in some way, shape, or form, they're interested in Clemson football. So, what is kind of your take on why FSU is getting so much hype in the national media, and why they seem to be getting, kind of, I guess, a pass, if you will, and kind of elevated to, it kind of seems like it's FSU, and then it sort of seems like Clemson's chasing FSU, at least in the eyes of the national media heading into the 2023 season. And that's not something that Clemson's been able to say for, probably 10 or more years in the ACC. So,
Yeah. I think it's really simple, and I think these kind of things are really just, especially when you're talking about media and just outside perception of programs.
yeah.
It's pretty basic. I think the projections of these teams really are all about program trajectory, or at least perceived program trajectory. And in
Right.
the eyes of most people, Florida State, a team that historically has a lot of success, has been down, for several years now,
Yeah.
and they finally they have a coach that has kind of righted the ship, and he won what, 3 games his first year, 5 games his second, and then he doubles his win total this past season. So Florida State is considered to be on the way up. And when you look at Clemson, the past 2 seasons have been a dip from what we've been accustomed to from this program. And so, both programs are seen as moving in opposite directions. Whether
Yeah.
that's true or not is
Right.
irrelevant. But
Yeah.
it's the perception. It's how it's how just people in college football fans and media in general tend to look at things. If you exceeded expectations last season, you're going to be expected to kind of continue that trajectory. That isn't always how it works. A lot of
Mhm.
times it's not how it works, but that's kind of how people view it. But I do think that Florida State definitely they have something, and it's not just the trajectory. I won't discredit them that much. They have a ton coming back. They really finished the last season strong. They're bringing back one of the preseason favorites to win the Heisman, or he's at least in the running and on the short list. And at quarterback, in Jordan Travis, they've really done a ton of work in the transfer portal, which is teams that load up and build impressive transfer classes. They're always going to get love in the off season, because it's easy to kind of project and be like, oh, the Florida State added difference makers here, and here, and here, and
Right.
if they short up those issues they had last season, they're going to be even better than they were last year. And
Yeah.
so I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, because especially
Is
with respect to Clemson, who is
right.
notoriously not leveraged the transfer portal. So it's kind of
Right.
a
Is
clash of opposing styles for
yeah.
sure.
Is Florida State the NC State of last season? Because you remember the last offseason, NC State was hyped up as the latest and the greatest of the ACC. It was their year. They were going to take over the ACC. They were probably going to win the ACC and maybe get a playoff berth. There was national media types talking about NC State as a actual playoff team last year. If people can remember back that
Yeah.
far. So is FSU the NC State of last year?
I don't think it's going to be quite. I don't want to say they're the NC State of last year. I don't want to
Yeah.
project that, because
Right. Yeah.
I I do think there's a little bit of a difference. Obviously, I think just simply because Florida State, they have a different caliber of roster than NC State did. NC State got a
Sure.
lot of
Yeah.
the love they did because they had an experience. They're not NC State wasn't overly talented, and they never were, but they had a senior laden roster.
Yeah.
They had a perceived Heisman, potential quarterback in Devin Leary. Obviously, that didn't work out, but they weren't really overly talented. I think Florida State has definitely upped their talent level in the past couple of seasons. They've done a good job in the transfer portal. I think they just have a different roster makeup. and you couple that with the returning production that they have, it makes them a little bit different. I don't think they're going to have quite the. I don't think they're going to have the disappointing season that NC State did last year. I mean, I'm not going to rule anything out. Injuries happen. Anything can happen in college football, but I don't want to equate the two exactly,
Yeah.
because I do
Okay.
think there's definitely a lot more to the Florida State the Florida State hype, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be. I don't expect them to fall off the map. I think they're going to be a really good team. They've done a good job in the transfer portal. They already have really good players.
Yeah.
They
No.
got some guys to come back. They're going to be a good team next year. I feel
Yeah. I
pretty
mean.
confident about that. But
Yeah. I
whether they
mean.
are the ACC championship college
Yeah.
football playoff contender type team that a lot of people are kind of projecting, that remains to be seen.
Right. I think Mike Norvell has done a great job at Florida State. Right. He's done a great job at rebuilding that program. They were in an absolute mess when Mike Norvell took over. We know Jimbo Fisher left for Texas A&M. They hired what is his name?
Willie Taggart.
Willie Taggart. That was an absolute disaster for Florida State. I think Florida State struggled with some of their buy-in from, the school side of things, and they weren't absolutely bought in on giving the football program everything that they needed. And I think Mike Norvell has rebounded really well, and he's recruiting well. He's doing, obviously he's doing really well in the transfer portal. And that's something that's been talked about a lot when it comes to Florida State. But at the same time, I think a lot of it is being overhyped to a degree. I'm not saying Mike Norvell hasn't done a good job. I'm not saying they're not recruiting well. They've done amazing in the transfer portal and all of that kind of stuff. But with all of that said, I do think Florida State's being overhyped to a degree. And I think part of it is just a thirst for another team other than Clemson in the ACC to actually perform, right, to the level that Clemson has, right? So I think a lot of it is, what Clemson has done in the ACC for 10 plus years now. I think there's just a thirst and a hunger in the national media and in things like that for another team to just step up and just compete with Clemson. Maybe not overtake Clemson, but just compete. So they're so hungry for a team to compete with Clemson. So I think that's a lot of what the Florida State hype is this season. Now, that game will be in Death Valley early on in September. I think it'll be what is it? The last game in September, right?
I think so. I know it's week 4, so that would
week 4. So right before the calendar turns to October, it's going to be an amazing game. I'm sure Death Valley will be absolutely packed and outside of their mind. So it's going to be a great game. I'm not hating on Florida State at all. So please don't mistake any of my words for that. But I do think some of the Florida State hype is a little premature. They need to prove it onto the field. I know they have a great quarterback returning. I know they have a lot of players that could have gone to the NFL draft that returned. So they have a bright future coming into the 2023 season. But I think people are discounting a lot of what Clemson has coming back as well. We have a whole lot returning this season too. So it's not a foregone conclusion that Florida State is a national title contender and Clemson is not. So anybody who thinks that, that's not the case. We will see come late September, and that'll probably a repeat game come ACC championship time. I would guess. This is the first year that we don't have divisions. So the 2 teams with the best record will play in the ACC championship game. And I fully suspect those teams to be Clemson and Florida State right now. We'll see how the season plays out though. So you know, I I know a lot has been said about Florida State and their kind of trajectory coming into the season, but they have to prove it onto the field. They really do have to prove it on the field, and that field in the ACC still goes through Clemson, South Carolina, and Death Valley. So we'll see what they have come late September. But let's get into the offensive side of the ball. We talked a lot about the defensive side of the ball last week. And I really want to talk about the Kyle Richardson interview that he gave this week. I think it was on Tuesday. I think he gave the interview. And he talked about the differences between this offense and last year's offense, right? And he talked about it not being a lot of plays. He talked about it being creating mismatches when it comes to the offensive and defensive players, right? He talked about it's a handful of plays, but to the defense, it looks like a different play with every single formation, right? So he talked about how simplifying things makes it easy for the offensive personnel. It makes it easy for the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, the tight ends, right? But it makes it complicated when it comes to defending it because they dress it up so many different ways. And he talked about how taking advantage of the personnel and getting the ball into the skill guys' hands, right? Getting the ball into the playmakers' hands is really what this offense is focused on. He talked about how the quarterback becoming more comfortable and confident just translates into everyone playing better. He talked about the difference in the systems. So one of the big differences last season, coming into spring last season, this is something that Brandon Streeter talked a lot about. If everybody remembers back to last spring, talked about simplifying the offense. And I think it was one of the things that Clemson just added so many things to their playbook, and they tried to simplify it last season. But one of the big things that he talked about is that this scheme is just simple, right? So it's not necessarily just simplifying for the sake of just breaking, just getting rid of plays. This scheme is just simple in general, right? And then they have a lot of different formations based off of the handful of plays that they have that make it look different to the defense, but the offensive personnel is kind of doing the same thing. What were your kind of thoughts on what Kyle Richardson talked about in his interview, and what were your big takeaways from that?
Just a lot of what a lot of Clemson fans have been dying and begging to hear.
Yeah.
You went over, you covered just about everything, but yeah, the simplicity of the scheme is essentially so it takes all the thinking out of the plays, and just it allows your best guys to go out there and make plays and have fun doing it. And that was one thing that Kyle Richardson made an emphasis of, is that the guys are really enjoying learning the scheme, and they it's a lot different. Some of the it's a lot different from previous Clemson offenses, not necessarily in the plays that they run, but how they run them and the simplicity of it, and what their assignments are, and how what responsibilities everybody has. It makes it so that everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows what they're going to do, and it allows for adaptability on the fly, but still allows it so that everybody is on the same page and knows what they're doing. So I'm really excited to see this offense in action. It's a joy to hear stuff like oh, we're going to use the middle of the field, the 10 to 15 yard area in the middle of the field,
Yeah.
and the tight ends are going to be involved and all of that. It's very refreshing to hear. Now, I will say, you got to see it. we
Yeah.
have to we have to see it. You said
Right.
all the right
And
things.
yeah, and
I
that's
believe it, but
yeah.
we have to see it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I did want to get into, Jordan, is this is a lot of what we heard last offseason, right? Like Brandon Streeter said a lot of the things that we're hearing come out of the Clemson offense this year and Garrett Riley and Kyle Richardson and stuff like that. But what I found interesting is how Kyle Richardson really broke down the difference between the two offenses, right? And he talked about how Garrett Riley's offense is not a big option route system. There's not a lot of option routes. And what he meant by that was, a receiver running a route and they can go right, left, or up the middle, right? This, I guess, Garrett Riley's system is more geared around they're going to go right, right? The route tree is obviously if the receiver is going to run right or they're going to run left, whatever, they're going to run right 100% of the time, but they're going to level it, right, based on the defense. So maybe they go high, maybe they go low, maybe they go in the middle based off of how the defensive coverage is. So that was one of the big differences that Kyle Richardson really broke down. And it kind of made sense to me is, last season we talked about option routes and, it seemed that it was, they could go anywhere. Well, this system's kind of built around no, they're going to go right or they're going to go left or they're going to go wherever, and it's just going to level it based off of where the defense is and kind of just get into the open space of the defense and settle in there and let the quarterback make that read and make that throw, which is something that I really like. I think it's something that Cade Klubnik will thrive in. It gives a quarterback a lot of answers when it comes to a defense, when it comes to when he's receiving pressure and things like that. So it's really encouraging to hear things like that. It's really encouraging to hear, Kyle Richardson, the passing coordinator, talk about, things like that and how they're really training the tight ends, how they're training the receivers. We heard a Tyler Grisham talk about, the receiving core and stuff like that this past week. So it's encouraging to hear that the players on the field within the lines, when the ball is snapped, they have answers and they all understand the answers and they all understand that there are options, but there are limitations within the scheme, within the options that they have. So it makes it easy for the quarterback to realize what's happening with the defense. And then I think he can anticipate a lot better when it comes to the defense where the receiver is going to be, right? So if they're reading the right things, if they're reading the right keys, he'll know where the receiver is going to go based off of the defense, right?
Absolutely. And it's just going to make things a lot easier for both the quarterback, the receivers, and they're just going to it's going to be they're going to be able to make plays and they're not going to have to think so much. You don't have to, and the best part about it is you rep it with so many small, it's smaller, it's a smaller playbook, a smaller group of plays that you're carrying into a game. You get to rep it over and over and over again in practice, and you know exactly, especially from the receiver standpoint, you're not changing sides, you're not having to relearn how to run the route on the left versus the right, and your footwork is the same every single time. You can be precise, and it takes all the thinking about it, and it just becomes muscle memory. And when players are just doing what comes naturally, it allows their talents to really show. Because I think that's kind of what has. I don't think this wide receiver room is untalented, and I don't think it's been untalented the past two seasons.
No.
But there's definitely been, outside of injuries and all of that, which have definitely plagued that group. It's just a lot of unsure. A lot of guys seem to be unsure of themselves and not, and the confidence, the swagger that you normally expect from a Clemson wide receiver room just hasn't been there. And so I think this will open the door for these guys to kind of get that back. And I think we're going to see some. Well, I hope, but I also think we'll see those pay dividends come the fall for sure.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see big dividends when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And one of the big things that Kyle Richardson talked about at the end of his press conference is he talked about the ability to dictate pace to the defense, right? So he talked about how this offense is not necessarily like you don't have to go. It's not a Tennessee offense, right? Where you just go 100 miles an hour the entire time, right? It's an offense where you can go fast if you want to, or you can slow it down if you want to. And he talked about one of the big things that I think is going to be a huge change for Clemson is typically Clemson's offensive coordinator is up in the box, right? But it seems like Garrett Riley's not going to be up in the box. It seems like he's going to be on the field because Kyle Richardson talked about him personally, Garrett Riley signing in the plays. He talked about how there's not going to be any more, banners and signs coming in with the signage and the big things like that. That Garrett Riley's going to be personally signing in every single play to the quarterback. So that really dictates the speed that you can go, right? If one guy is signing in everything and the quarterback is looking at one person on the sideline versus looking at a sign and then communicating, and then receivers communicate and offensive line has to communicate, and so on and so forth, it really cuts down all those levels of communication that had to go well in Clemson's offense before for it to execute properly. And now it's just Garrett Riley to Cade Klubnik, boom, to the offense, we're running the play, right? So it really cuts down and it really streamlines what Clemson's going to do offensively. And like we talked about before, they're shrinking the playbook. But with that said, with the shrinking playbook, they dress it up in so many different formations that it never looks the same for the defense, right? So, yes, is it 10, 20, 30 plays, whatever, excuse me, whatever the amount of plays are. But to the defense, it looks like a different play every time. But to the offensive side of the ball, to the quarterback, to the running back, to the wide receivers, to the skill positions, it's the same exact play every single time. They're just dressing it up differently and making the defense think it's a different play every single time. So I think it's really something that I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to see it on the field, come this season. Hopefully we see a little bit of it in the spring game. Obviously we won't see a ton in the spring game, but there's a ton of encouraging stuff coming out of the Clemson offensive staff when it comes to this new offense and how Garrett Riley is really installing and really changing this Clemson offense.
Yeah. And the last thing before we move on, Kyle Richardson also, he made it a point that Garrett Riley, as far as installing the offense, it's really been awesome to hear that it's a total overhaul. It's there hasn't been let's look at what Clemson has done in the past and let's see if we can kind of mesh and merge stuff together and see maybe we can have a balance between the old Clemson offense and what you like to do. No, Dabo has handed the keys over to Garrett Riley, and he's like, I brought you here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
This is your offense. You install it. Let's go. Let's get back to playing what real Clemson football.
There we go.
And when he said that was probably my favorite part of the interview because yes, I mean obviously there are things from the Clemson offense that you will see in the Garrett Riley offense, but it's not because they were parts of the Clemson offense. It's because, well, there's just a lot of similarities between schemes. Like everybody runs, everybody runs screens. You're
like
don't be like, oh my God, it's the same offense if Clemson comes out and throws a screen pass.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, people are going to freak out if
oh
Clemson
man,
throws a screen pass.
I'm trying to tell you,
everybody runs screens.
If Clemson's first place from scrimmage is a screen pass, every fan is going to lose their mind, right?
Yeah.
But the principles in a lot of offenses are exactly the same, which is kind of what you're getting at, right? Like, and it's what Dabo has said. It's what all the offensive staff has said. Every single interview that they've had, they've said, hey, all we're trying to do is get on the same page when it comes to terminology. We run a lot of the core stuff that Garrett Riley already runs, right? And you got a Kyle Richardson that ran that offense for most of his career, right?
Yeah.
So he's super comfortable with it already. So getting back into it, it's kind of like riding a bike. He's just getting back into the offense that he's already used to running, a scheme that he's already kind of comfortable with.
And you can tell he's more enthusiastic about it
too. He's way more enthusiastic about it, and you can tell. Just I feel like every offensive coach that's interviewed from Clemson so far this spring is they're really excited about this offense. You can see a kind of a renewed excitement about where the program's going, about where the offense is going, and kind of the trajectory of where we're going to be in 2023. And it sounds like Cade is playing fast. It sounds like the offense is playing fast as a whole, and it's really something that we should commend Dabo for making the change, because it wasn't an easy change to be made, and we talked about it on length at this channel about how we didn't think Brandon Streeter was going to get fired this offseason.
No,
you didn't think it. I didn't think it. I don't think anyone watching us right now in the live chat thought that Brandon Streeter would be fired this offseason. But Dabo Swinney saw that it wasn't up to Clemson standards. We were trending in the wrong direction, and he made the change. And he made the best hire out of any program in America when it comes to defensive or offensive coordinators in the country. He made the best hire, hands down. There's no question about it. So, it's exciting. I think Clemson offense is trending in the right direction. And, keeping with the theme of Clemson's offense trending in the right direction, I want to talk about two guys that are in our backfield. I want to talk about a Will Shipley and a Maffa. A Shipley and a Maffa in our backfield. And, I saw an article earlier this week talking about how they may be the best 1-2 punch in the country coming into the 2023 season. And CJ and Tyler Grisham had a very lengthy press conference. I think it was about 40 minutes. And they were asked a bunch of different questions about the receivers. CJ Spiller was asked a bunch of different questions about the running backs. And, CJ really talked about how Shipley's approaching this season. And he compared him to a rookie competing for playing time. And he's really attacking the offseason. He's really attacking it. And he's pretending like he hasn't proven anything at Clemson, and he has, right? So I think we have one of the greatest backfields in the country heading into 2023. You got a guy in Will Shipley who let's see his stats from last season. I got him here somewhere.
I generally know him off the top of my head. I think
he had 1,182 yards, 15 touchdowns, 38 receptions for 242 yards, 14 kickoffs for 324 yards, and he was first team All ACC in 3 categories. First team All ACC in 3 categories. That's our starting running back at Clemson. Oh, and by the way, you got a guy in Phil Maffa who's behind him. That this dude, Phil Maffa, is a load. And I talked about it, and we talked about it on this show at nauseum throughout our post-game live shows that we did throughout the season, in that he just didn't get enough carries. Plain and simple, he just didn't get enough carries. And I don't think that's going to be a problem in a Garrett Riley offense, because I think a Garrett Riley offense is a run-first offense. I know it's a spread offense. I know it's, compared to, kind of the running gun offenses. And, I know it's compared to a Mike Leach offense, but it's very different in the fact that they run first in order to set up the pass. And I think Clemson's personnel just meshes so perfectly with a Garrett Riley offense when you got a guy in Shipley and Maffa in the backfield. I mean, these dudes in a 1-2 punch, like Shipley, a dynamic back, right? He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run it out of the backfield. And then you got a guy in Phil Maffa who can just, repeatedly just pound that defense, right? And into the fourth quarter, they're not going to want to see a guy with fresh legs like a Phil Maffa, because he's a load to tackle, and he does not go down easily ever. So talk a little bit about Clemson's backfield when it comes to a Will Shipley and a Phil Maffa.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this for these guys. I think these past 2 seasons have been, just for a lot of reasons, just are really trying, and I think those two have been absolutely been a bright spot. And as good as their stats, especially Shipley, as good as their stats have been, you could definitely make the argument, and I think it's pretty evident that they were underused at times. So throughout the last 2 years, and for sure. I don't think we're going to have that problem this year. I think they're going to be one. I think the offense will be more effective in the passing game, that teams won't be able to, dedicate more resources to the run like they did at times last year and the year before. But also, I just these two guys, they're roommates. They're in their 3rd year together. The camaraderie that these two guys have is really, really awesome and rare. A guy like Maffa could start at a lot of places in the country, but
yeah, and
he hasn't. I don't want to jinx anything, because there's another transfer portal window coming up. So
okay, so I don't know if I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
Phil Maffa was asked about his thoughts on transferring after this past season, after the
I know what you're referring to. But
after the 2022 season, and he just kind of reiterated that Clemson is where he wanted to be. He talked to his family. He did consider transferring, which is something that gives me heart palpitations as a Clemson fan, right? Because I do not want to see Phil Maffa leave a Clemson program. But he said ultimately he wasn't close to transferring. He said his relationship with Will Shipley, his love of the Clemson program, is what kept him there. He knew that's where he wanted to be. And one of the interesting things that Will Shipley also said was that, he came to Clemson to be used in different ways. And he really feels like that the Garrett Riley offense is going to really utilize every tool that he has in his bag, right? Not only as a running back, but also as a receiver out of the backfield, In every sort of dynamic way that you can use a Will Shipley and a Phil Maffa. I think that, a Garrett Riley is going to maximize those dudes when it comes to this season. Yes, do we have questions on the offensive line? That goes without saying. I feel like every season going into it, Clemson has questions on the offensive line, right? But what you cannot question is Clemson's talent in the backfield when it comes to running backs. And they have depth behind them. You got a Will Shipley. Yeah, you got a Phil Maffa. But you got a lot of depth behind them and a lot of dudes that could step up and play a role. But when it comes to those two dudes, I think they're dynamic. And I cannot wait to see what those two dudes produce in a Garrett Riley run offense where, receivers are running free and it really opens up the running game. These dudes are going to absolutely ball out this season, if you ask me.
I'm with you 100%. We're really excited to see how these guys look, and just excited to see how they're implemented within the offense, because I think there's just going to be a lot, more intelligent decisions, let's say, and how they're used and when they're used, especially.
Yeah, for sure.
So really excited to see those two in their third year. Will Shipley, he's undoubtedly evolved into one of the leaders of this team. And he's kind of he's taken that role in stride this offseason from everything I've read. So really excited to see those two once again be a nice little 1-2 punch to spearhead that Clemson offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move to the wide receivers a little bit. I want to talk about the wide receiver position because Tyler Grisham and CJ Spiller did have that long interview, and they talked about the running back position, which we just talked about. But they also talked about a lot of wide receivers. And one of the wide receivers that Tyler Grisham really talked about was Antonio Williams and how he's already improved this spring. He wasn't satisfied coming into spring. He wasn't satisfied with his freshman performance, although it was great. Although he probably, aided Clemson and was probably one of the best receivers on Clemson's squad this past season. But he's really looking to improve on that. He's already dominating the scrimmages that Clemson's having. And they're really trying to challenge him to be an alpha, to be a leader in that room. He talked about a Cole Turner who is working to get better, right? Who flashed at the end of last season. All of us saw Cole Turner kind of have a breakout game, when it came to the ACC championship game. Cole Turner had an interview and he was talking about, his main objective was to, really work on adjusting his routes based on the defense. He talked about how transition to college was a little bit tougher than he thought it was going to be. This is a guy, Cole Turner is a guy that didn't play football until his junior season in high school, right? So, he's really trying to gain some weight. He's trying to gain some muscle in the weight room. He's trying to get up to like 190, 195. He flashed in the ACC championship game, and he's really trying to improve on his releases. And then you got a guy in Bo Collins who is not participating fully in spring, but he is participating, according to Tyler Grisham, in everything team separate, right? So he's still getting the install. He's still getting a lot of the reps, just none of the competitive reps when it comes for one offense versus one defense and stuff like that. And then you got a guy in Adam Randall who, the coaches last spring were talking, crazy about Adam Randall and how great he was and heading into fall camp. And then he tore his ACL and he recovered with record time from his ACL. He kind of did an Amari Rogers recovery from his ACL, right? But then, unfortunately, he's out this spring as well because he had to have cleanup on his opposite knee for whatever reason. What's kind of your, I don't know, where do you see this receiver room going? Who do you see, kind of stepping up this season? Because Clemson's going to have guys step up at the wide receiver position. We know what Antonio Williams did last season. We know what Cole Turner did in the last 4 games of last season. Adam Randall never really got his feet under him last season. Is it going to be a freshman coming in, or where do you really see this wide receiver room progressing when it comes to summer, fall camp, and heading into the 2023 season?
For me, it's wait and see. There's so much, so many questions on so many guys. Really, everybody not named Antonio Williams has question marks.
Yeah,
and with a guy like Joseph Ngata moving on, a guy I think you really could have seasoned. You need some guys to step up. Some of those questions have to be answered. I think there's definitely answers in the room, but
yeah,
we don't know. We've hardly seen most of these guys. A lot of these guys have dealt with injury. I mean, Bo Collins is.
I mean, we've recruited so well in the position, but guys like Troy Stellato literally never been on the field, right?
No.
Continuously hurt. He's still very limited. I don't know. It's hard to gauge Clemson's wide receiver room right now.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes it hard to project this group going into the season. It's a lot. Like I said, it's a lot of wait and see. Bo Collins, I think he has to come back and he has to be at least one of the guys. I think you really need that experience. He's a 3rd-year guy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he's made plays in his career, but it's a matter of staying on the field and getting his body right. Because I think the kid is talented and I think he can play, but he needs to stay on the field. Antonio Williams, obviously, he's got to take that next step forward. Phenomenal, freshman season, but he's got to continue to progress, become, kind of build into a leader. You're probably going to need a freshman or two to step up. Noble Johnson is an early enrollee. He looks the part from everything I've read, but
yes.
He's still learning, and we can't that can't be someone you're necessarily relying on and hoping steps up this season. So he's going to have to take that next step between now and fall practice and heading into the season. Brandon Spector is probably the most experienced guy in the room. I mean, he's been here forever.
Do you think
he kind of is what he is at this point?
Do you think Bo Collins can step up and be the alpha of that group, or that's kind of the guy? That's kind of the guy that comes to my mind. I know in Antonio Williams, we all know what he can do, and I think he will have another outstanding season, barring injury or anything like that. But I'm really focused on a Bo Collins to really step up and do what he needs to do. Maybe, if it has to be a young guy in Noble Johnson or something like that, I guess. But I would really love to see, a Bo Collins step up and really and he's been pretty consistent when he's been healthy for Clemson. But he's got to stay healthy and he has to really step up and become that guy in that room. And I know, Tyler Grisham talked about how it's an unselfish room, about how, everybody's kind of a team player in that room and so on and so forth. But somebody has to step up and be the leader of that group. And I'm interested to see who it's going to be.
For 100%. So there's like I said, there's answers. There are guys that we think are talented. The coaches tell us is talented, but we just yet you have to see it. I mean, hey, Cole Turner coming on at the end of the season, that was really exciting and
Yeah.
really cool. And the staff really seems to like him, maybe a little too much considering some of the comparisons he got this week. I that was interesting to say the least.
Did you see who
Apparently we have DeAndre Hopkins on the sideline.
Yeah,
so,
did you see who he got compared to?
Yeah,
oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. So I put I put it on Twitter. I was like, stop asking the staff for comparisons. Please stop.
Please stop. It's like last week when they were talking about the defensive lineman,
Peter Woods.
Peter Woods, and they were like, "Oh, he's better than Christian Wilkins," and you're like, "Bro, chill." Like, wow, calm down. Like we like pump the brakes.
I'm like, all right, Dabo. If we don't have if we don't have if we have another disappointing season, don't question why the fans are upset and all that. When you're telling us we have DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Wilkins 2.0 on the sidelines.
Yeah, when you feed the fans that kind of stuff, look, man, they're gonna have expectations absolutely through the roof. So, just be careful. Be careful what you wish for, Dabo. Be careful what you wish for, Clemson staff. Be careful throwing those type of names around.
That's rarefied air in Clemson.
That's completely rarefied air when it comes to Clemson. And I know it's easy in the running back room when you got a coach in C.J. Spiller, which is one of the legends when it comes to Clemson. I know Will Shipley's compared to him a lot. And it's easy to do because, he's his coach and stuff like that. But I think Clemson's coaching staff needs to calm down with some of their comparisons, man. They're setting those, like, if those dudes don't become absolute, anomalies when it comes to Clemson football, they're going to be disappointments, right?
Remember when Joseph Ngata and Frank Ladson came in as recruits, and the staff was comparing them to DeAndre. It was DeAndre Hopkins. It was Nuke and Sammy 2.0.
Nuke and Sammy 2.0, and
they were coming back,
and they didn't do anything in the Clemson uniform. So,
especially Frank. Man, I was so excited for Frank Ladson, but that's another story, another conversation for another day. The what could have beens and
who knows why it didn't work, or whatever the case may be. But obviously, that's one of the huge question marks when it comes into the 2023 Clemson football team, right? The wide receiver position, huge question mark. Nobody can refute that. No Clemson fan can refute that at all. So, it's going to be, like I said, somebody in that room has to become the alpha. Somebody has to become the leader. Who knows who that'll be? But it has to happen. And Tyler Grisham is going to have to push those guys and really make someone become, the no doubt alpha of the group, because it's necessary, right? You need a T. Higgins. You need a Justin Ross. You need those type of guys in your room. You need a Mike Williams in your room, right? You need that alpha. And then all the guys around him as well are important. But you need that alpha in order to elevate your receiving room to where it's supposed to be. So who knows? Is it Cole Turner? Is it Antonio Williams? Is it Bo Collins? Who is it? I don't know. But hopefully it's someone. Hopefully someone in that room is capable of stepping up and being the alpha of the wide receiver group. So Big Mick says Cole is like a Mike Williams type receiver.
I would not.
I don't know
I
about
would
that.
not make that comparison. No.
I don't know. Adam Randall, maybe, absolutely. He's a big body guy. I think Cole Turner will be great. I think he's fast. I think he's aggressive when it comes to attacking the ball. But I don't think he's a Mike Williams. He's not big enough to be a Mike Williams.
Yeah, I don't ever see Cole Turner out physicaling somebody for the ball. I think he can out jump some DBs, but he's not gonna.
Yeah, and Adam Randall could become a Mike Williams. He's got the size to be a Mike Williams. Is he capable of being that receiver? I don't know. That's yet to be seen. But I don't know. Clemson's wide receiver group is a big question mark, as is their offensive line group. But
the offensive. Well, I don't want to. We'll talk about that some other time. But
we'll talk about that. Maybe next episode we'll get into the offensive line. Yeah. Maybe we'll do that next episode. We'll talk about the offensive line and get a little more into that. But what I want to get into now, Jordan, we kind of talked about the offense in general. Last thing I want to talk about, I ran across a video on YouTube, and I don't know how I ran across this video, and you probably haven't seen it because it was kind of ridiculous, but it was talking about the Clemson quarterback battle in 2023.
No, I haven't seen this.
Clemson does not have a quarterback battle in 2023. Cade Klubnik is 100% going to be the quarterback in 2023, barring injury.
Well, it's not true that Clemson doesn't have a quarterback battle. It's just not for. They have a quarterback battle. It's just not for.
It's not for this. Yeah, it's not for QB1. Yeah, no. QB2. They might have a battle, right? Yeah. It might be between Chris Vizina, Paul Tyson, those types. But Clemson absolutely does not have a quarterback battle when it comes to QB1. That will be Cade Klubnik. The guy, he was a 5-star recruit. He was the number 1 quarterback in his class. No doubt about it. He will be Clemson's starting quarterback come next season. So it's just funny how some people just, and it's YouTube, right? You create headlines and videos, to just kind of get clickbait and stuff like that. So, I don't blame people. I just, I thought it was funny to mention.
Big Nick says it was clickbait. He says he watched it. It was clickbait.
Yeah.
Was it Scott Fish? Oh, okay. I know who that guy. Okay,
who was it?
Okay, so he makes titles like that.
Okay, I didn't even watch the video. Yeah. I just saw the title and I was like, "That's ridiculous."
Yeah,
Clemson absolutely does not.
I believe that. Yes, Scott does that sometimes. That's for sure.
Okay. I just thought it was funny to mention because people get out of hand with this stuff, man. It's anything to get views, I guess. But the last thing that we have for you guys tonight for our show, we want to get into a little bit of Clemson football history. We just broke down spring. We just broke down the Clemson offense. We talked about the receivers. We talked about the running backs. We talked a little bit about the quarterbacks. We talked about all things Clemson football tonight. But we want to get into a little bit of Clemson football history. So, those of you in the comment section, I see there's 17 people in the live chat right now. I'm going to ask you a question that Jordan proposed to me earlier tonight. And it is the best Clemson game pre-2016.
I got this from Twitter.
Jordan got this from Twitter. What is your most memorable what is your best Clemson game pre-2016? What's the game you remember the most, whether it be, an epic win, an epic loss? What's the game that is your first thought pre-2016? So get into the comment section. Let us know what your thoughts are, and we will kind of discuss a couple of our thoughts on the pre-2016 Clemson games.
Yeah. Oh, and I also want to say the question was framed. What's one game pre-2016, like pre-national championship, all of that, that every Clemson fan should watch. So that
there we go.
that could be that could be your favorite. It could be a game that is really important and just really important in Clemson history. It might not be your the favorite game of yours, but it's a game that's really important in Clemson. It shaped Clemson lore in some way. Got a lot of really interesting responses on that tweet. So I want to see what people want to see what everybody in here thinks.
Matt B says Maryland 2011 was nuts.
Oh yeah, that was the Sammy Watkins game. Yeah, oh my God, yeah. That game was crazy.
That was crazy.
That might be my. Well, it's not better. It's not better than the Orange Bowl against Ohio State, which I'm sure some people will also mention. But man, that Sammy went off in that game. That was beautiful.
Clemson Auburn 2011. Chad Moore's first year as OC.
Great game.
Great
what was
game.
that final? 38-24. Todd Boyd, full-time starter. Chad Morris, first year offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Against the defending national champions. Great game.
Yeah, it was a great game. Edward says the one I remember the most is not a win. It's that dang West Virginia U blowout.
Yeah. The 2011 or 2012, but 2011 season, Orange Bowl was, that's probably one of the most infamous games in Clemson history. Might be the most infamous game in Clemson.
You know what the greatest thing about that game is? Is it delivered us Brent Venables.
Yeah, and that's the.
And
that's
current,
the saving grace, and
the current defensive prowess that Clemson operates with. So, as bad as that game was, I think it changed Clemson forever for the best. I'm with you, Edward. That was a tough one. Steel Gamble says the Auburn-Clemson game from 2011.
Yeah,
Clemson was down 21-0 at one point and came back to win 38-24. Dabo's first big win that got the ball rolling. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was a great win. And you get redemption from the previous year. You take that Cam Newton championship team down to the wire. You had a double-digit lead late in that game, and you squander it and lose in overtime. It's crazy. Clemson could have ruined that 2010 Auburn season, but then that team wasn't even particularly that good. Clemson, I mean, obviously that was the 6 and 7 year loss to South Florida, all of that.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So. That was a brutal loss.
That loss to South Florida in Charlotte. Guess who was at that game?
Oh no,
me.
Oh no,
that's the first Clemson game I ever took my wife to.
Oh my God,
and it was miserable.
Hey, the one thing I'll say about it was the Meineke Car Care Bowl.
Yeah, the Meineke Car Care Bowl is what it was, and we lost to freaking South Florida. In Panther Stadium in Charlotte. I freaking bought tickets. And not only did I buy tickets for me and my wife, but I took my sister-in-law at a last minute. She was like, "Oh, I've never been to a game before." I was like, "I got you. I'll buy you tickets." And then we lost.
The only thing,
it was absolutely miserable.
The only thing redeemable about that game was you kind of saw glimpses of what Taj Boyd was going to be in that game,
Yeah,
but just that was rock bottom for sure.
that was rough, man. I was livid. I was livid in that game. John Sarin brings up a big game. For me, it was, I think he met the 2012 Chick-fil-A Bowl.
Yeah, he corrected it. Yeah,
Yeah, he corrected it. Yeah, 2012, not 2021. The start of the Dabo dynasty. It was questionable before that. Yeah, absolutely. The 4th and 16.
Catman hitting the field goal.
Catanzaro hitting the 37-yard field goal for the win. It was an epic game for Clemson. For any Clemson fan that remembers back there, it was an absolute. I mean, look, I remember just freaking out watching that game. Right, that 4th and 16, I lost my mind when that happened. It was absolutely amazing. One of my favorite Clemson memories when it comes to the Dabo Swinney era, for sure.
100%
at Clemson. So
and on that 4th and 16 play, Adam Humphries was open.
Yes, he was.
If you look on the left side, he
was open.
There was nobody within like 10 feet of him, but Taj Boyd did not see him. Taj Boyd was always one for the theatrics.
Absolutely,
and,
man.
He always put on a show, and he made the difficult throw and made Nuke have to make a difficult catch, and he made it. Oh
man,
Nuke made two big.
Imagine if Nuke would have dropped that ball, dude, or if that would have been incomplete. It wouldn't have been good. Steel Gamble says 2015 Clemson FSU. The student section went absolutely bonkers when Gallman scored that TD to put the game away.
That's a great game. Yeah, and that you get the Florida State monkey off your back, and it was kind of a changing of the guard there.
That's kind of when Clemson that's when Clemson kind of took over the ACC. And became, the front runners of the ACC, right? The flag bearers of the ACC. That was the changing of the guard game, if you had to pick one. So, yes, Kevin Steele got fired in the locker room.
What's up, John?
Hey, what's up, John? How you doing, man? Thanks for getting in here. Appreciate you. You guys go support John on the Michigan channel.
Absolutely.
They got good stuff over there. So share the love. Share the love over there as well. A Big Mick, the games, the losing streak to the Coots, the worst years ever. Yeah.
Big Mick, I said these are games that every Clemson fan should watch, not
watch. Yeah. We don't want to watch those. But I do understand what you're saying. Like that was a rough patch for Dabo in the Clemson program. All those consecutive losses to the trailer park of Columbia.
Yeah.
Yep, the dang center false started to push us out of field goal range, and Auburn went on to win the Natty after that. 2015 ACC championship game against number 15 UNC got us to our first playoff and started the streak. I like it. Yep.
Great game. A game that if you ask Tar Heel fans, they'll still complain about that onside kick.
How about?
Happy that it was a great game. It was a good game. The game that Clemson nearly squandered. I mean, North Carolina never should have been in position to kick an onside kick to have a chance to win in that game because Clemson was absolutely the better team. But pulled out the win, and that team was really tired. They even said, like the players even said, they were just trying to get through that game.
Yeah.
But
how about
you get the win?
How about speaking of 2015, the Notre Dame game, the Hurricane game of 2015. Do you remember
Well,
that game?
I was holding off on my list, but okay? We can go into it now.
Yeah, let's go into some of our lists because they're kind of you know, I don't know, that just triggered me for the Hurricane game because that was the origin of BYOG, bring your own
Bring
guts,
your own
right?
guts. Yep.
Dabo, rain pouring down. He's getting interviewed at midfield, and he's like, BYOG, bring your own guts, right? It's just one of the most epic Dabo moments ever, right? The Hurricane game. Was it Ben Boulware made the like game-saving tackle on like the half-yard line when Notre Dame was trying to get into the end zone. Absolutely amazing game to watch. Absolute sold-out crowd. I think even the governor of South Carolina was like, "Hey, don't go to the game.
Yeah.
There's a hurricane. Blah 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 blah." Right? But
Nobody listened.
it was a sold-out crowd. Nobody listened. Notre Dame was in town, and we won in epic fashion. And I think that was like, I think Dabo, like, maybe that was like the year that I think his dad passed away, and he was just like, he
I
was
think
just
that was that season.
he was on another level that year. He was just super. Yeah. It was a crazy game.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson jumps out to that lead early. Notre Dame makes that fierce rally late. It was
right.
just an ugly slugfest, and they make that stop on the 2-point conversion. That Notre Dame team was really, really good. I mean, they probably should. I think they went on to win 10 games, but that team was loaded.
Yeah, they were good, man.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
And that was it gave Clemson that signature win. That was, it was just an instant classic for sure.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that game will forever be, that game will forever go down in Clemson lore, for sure. Like Mike said, that was that game where Dabo yelled at the punter and USC.
Yeah, the ACC championship. Yeah, that was Andy Teasdall. Yeah, he got
bro. Do you remember that? Oh
yeah.
Man. He yelled at him and then yelled at him some more and then walked away and came back and yelled at him some more because apparently
I don't know. To this day, I don't know what he was thinking.
Just lost his mind and decided to do a fake punt when no one else called a fake punt.
Yeah.
One of the funniest moments ever. And the announcers just covered the whole thing when it came to Dabo dressing down his punter for sure.
Yeah.
The first game Dabo as a head coach. Oh, so he's talking about the BC win back in 2008 when he was an interim coach. That's when didn't CJ Spiller go off in that game?
Yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah, CJ Spiller had a great game in that game. He had. Yeah, I don't know. He had a lot.
I don't remember the stats. I don't
remember the stats either. But I remember CJ Spiller going off in that game. It was kind of a statement game for Dabo and the beginning of his program. And then I'll even go to, since we're talking about the 2008 BC win, Dabo's first win, that 2008 South Carolina win.
Yeah, that was one on my list for sure.
That was the day that Dabo got hired at Clemson as a full-time head coach. Before he was just an interim. I truly believe that's the day that Dabo Swinney got hired. When Clemson beat South Carolina that day, that's the day that Dabo Swinney got hired. That's when he got his real shot at Clemson. And obviously, the rest is history for us. I mean, could we ask for anything better? I mean, we hit the biggest home run hire out of literally nowhere.
Yeah.
If somebody hired Dabo Swinney, like Dabo Swinney back in 2008, if somebody hired Dabo Swinney back in 2008 today, they'd be called an absolute buffoon, a moron. You don't know what you're doing. This dude
At
has
least
no
any Power
business.
5 program
Yeah,
for
this
sure.
dude has no business being a head coach. He's never even been a coordinator. He's never called any plays. He's never blah, 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 blah. But Clemson hit an absolute home run with Dabo Swinney. So, yeah, absolutely. That 2008 win against Boston College was his first win as an interim. But more importantly, I think that USC win against the Gamecocks in 2008, that's when he got hired as the Clemson head coach. And look, we couldn't be happier with our decision. This is fun, man. This is fun talking about all the old Clemson wins, man. Off topic, are you guys going to any games this season?
Oh yeah, 100% plan to. I haven't. There hasn't been a season I haven't gone to a Clemson game since.
Yeah.
20. At least since at least since elementary school. I've been to at least one Clemson game every year.
What was your first Clemson game ever?
Well, and this one was on the list. The first Clemson game I ever went to was 2005 Texas A&M.
2005 Texas A&M.
Yeah, Clemson won it was a field goal fest, 25-24. It was real. It was real fuzzy. I know one of my great uncles took me and some of my cousins with him, and that was my first Clemson experience, at least at a home game. Chancey Stuckey, he had a punt return for a touchdown that game. Man, it was really, really good game. But yeah, that was the first game that's the first game I went to. Great game. Clemson pulls it out. What was yours?
So I can't remember the exact year, but it's when Maryland was still a part of the ACC.
Was it? This was like Ralph Friedgen, Maryland, wasn't it? Like when they were.
Yes.
They were actually they won 10 games a couple times. I know they went to the Orange Bowl one of those.
No, they were actually good. And it's before the West Zone. You remember when the West Zone was just like bleachers over there?
Yeah.
So I remember me and my dad, it's the first game he ever took me to. It was in the West Zone. We were sitting on those bleachers and we were playing Maryland. I, for the life of me, cannot remember exactly what year it was. But it was an absolute epic game. And I think Clemson won. If I remember correctly, Clemson won. But it was a really close game. And I remember storming the field afterwards, and it was so epic to me because it was the first ever Clemson game I had been to. This is me coming from, a Clemson family through and through, Tiger until the day you die. I literally came home, from the hospital when I was born in a Clemson outfit. So, it was predestined to me before I even, had the concept of what football was to be a Clemson fan. But that's my first memory at an actual Clemson game is sitting in the West End Zone playing Maryland in Death Valley. So pretty epic. That's my first memory as a Clemson fan.
Man, some other games we haven't even mentioned. Another one I had on my list was 2014 South Carolina, Deshaun Watson,
Yes.
torn ACL.
Yeah, on one leg.
Ending the 5-year streak.
Yes, that is a good one. That is a good one.
I call it the 5-year fluke.
The 5-year fluke. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Just
you remember all those pictures when Dabo used to get bombed?
Yeah.
South Carolina fans, dude. Oh my goodness. What a nightmare.
And this past season has reminded me why we should never lose to those guys because
bro, I'm trying to tell you.
They'll milk it to the day they die.
It's the most miserable thing ever.
Yeah.
It's the most miserable thing ever.
But no, great game. Clemson, they handled South Carolina, got the monkey off their back. That was a huge point. In Clemson's transition into a national power. Where's 2013 against Georgia. Man, that was a great game. Sammy Watkins
that
had a
was
big
a
game
great game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Todd Boyd and Aaron Murray going back and forth.
Yeah.
Clemson pulling it out in the end. Man, that was that. That's I remember the I like the video that people show like to show of when Clemson runs down the hill. I think the one against that one against Georgia, I think is the most like replayed I think I've ever seen. Like it went hard. The balloons. It was
the balloons.
Back
the most
when we were
exciting
allowed
25
to back when we
seconds
were
in
allowed to
college
do
football. Back before it became environmental hazard for us to release balloons.
But man, they and Matt B says they went all out on that. Bro, I agree. That was the best I think I've ever seen. Like Clemson running down the hill, like on on TV. Like it captured everything that's great about that tradition.
Yeah, Death Valley was out of control that night. I think it was like Kirk Herbstreit on the call, and they were like hyping it up as one of the best things ever. So yeah, it was crazy.
Man, how far this program has come. It's
man, so far.
Yeah.
All right, I want to give a shout out to John again. He's going live tomorrow at 1:15 to cover the Jaden Davis The Decision. So you guys, please show some love to him tomorrow. If you guys are in the live chat right now, please go check that out. 1:15 tomorrow. If you guys are available, please go check that out. And he will simulcast that on the Ohio State and Clemson channel as well. So I guess it'll be simulcasted on this channel. So please, tune into that. Give our boy John some love because, we're all on the same team here. Trying to grow our brands, trying to grow our individual team channels, but at the same time, sharing the love amongst each other. So, we got to mention the 1981 team, right? The national championship game against Nebraska.
The Orange Bowl. Absolutely,
that's an obvious one, right?
We haven't Jordan to Perry Tuttle.
Yeah, we haven't had a ton of success in the Orange Bowl. We have, but we've had a lot of.
We've had some low moments too.
We've had a lot of low moments in the Orange Bowl as well. So, but yeah, you got to mention the 1981 first national championship. That was absolutely crazy.
A couple of games from that 81 season. Beating Georgia 13-3. The first top 10 matchup in ACC history against North Carolina, 10-8. Clemson pulls that one out 10-8. I think they dropped 82, beating Wake Forest 82-24.
Yeah,
that season was pretty incredible. You could list a lot of games from that year, but obviously none bigger than winning that Orange Bowl over Nebraska. Tom Osborne, at the height of his dynasty.
Crazy.
And winning that game, Perry Tuttle catching that last touchdown pass to put the game out of reach from Homer Jordan. That team was loaded. You got Refrigerator Perry, Jeff Davis, Terry Kiner. Just a lot of talented guys in that room. So and on that team, and Danny Ford is still the youngest head coach to win a national championship.
Yeah, for sure. Edward says the Watson versus Jackson game, Clemson Louisville game, that was a great one. Absolutely.
Pre 2016, but
pre 2016, but Watson and Lamar Jackson had a ton of they had quite a few great games against each other. Obviously, Clemson always came out on top, but they were some epic battles. You remember the interception right on the goal line from who was it? What's his name?
Are you talking which year are you talking? Are you because the goal line stayed in 2014?
2014. Yeah.
Well, Lamar wasn't the start. He wasn't the starter then.
No. Lamar was the starter, so it would have been. Was it 2015? 2016?
I'm pretty sure. I don't think Watson and I think Watson and Lamar only went against each other once. That 2016 game.
Yeah.
I think he came in. I think he played a little bit in 2015.
I'm talking about the one in Death Valley, like that epic game in Death Valley.
Oh, 20. Well, that was 2016. That was
2016.
It wasn't an intercept. It was the. It was the. Marcus Edmond making the tackle on James Quick.
There you go.
Right,
at like the half-yard line. Yeah.
I was trying to remember who. I was like interception.
Not an interception. My bad.
I think you're thinking of NC. I think you're thinking of NC State.
Yeah, I might be thinking of NC State.
Marcus Edmond making that interception in overtime against NC State.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. But yeah,
Marcus Edmond, one of the unsung heroes in Clemson football. He saved that 2016 season twice.
Underrated.
Yeah,
underrated for sure.
Great game. Great game. Shout out to Marcus Edmond. I follow he great follow on Twitter too.
Like Mike says, my first game ever was seeing original Thunder and Lightning against Florida State.
Yeah, 07 Florida State. That was also on my list. Great game. That was the opener, I think. Florida State was ranked in the top 20. That was like the latter years of the Bobby Bowden era. Yeah, I think.
Yep.
That was a great game. Was that the third straight? I think that was because I know that Tommy Bowden beat his dad like the last 3 years of that that rivalry.
Was that the first time we beat Florida State?
It wasn't the first. I think that was the third in a 3-year streak.
The third, yeah.
Yeah.
So it started in
05, 06, 07, I think. Yeah. Obviously, Florida State was kind of tailing off at that point, but it was good to get those wins, and Tommy Bowden, get back on his dad.
I almost feel like his dad was letting him win at that point.
Maybe, I don't know. Rest in peace, Bobby Bowden.
Yeah, rest in peace, Bobby Bowden. One of the absolute legends of college football.
Jeremiah, Kelly Bryant blew. Yeah, he did blow out Louisville the next year. What man? That was. I remember Travis Etienne. He had that. That was the Travis Etienne's coming out party. He had that big run at the end of the game. That big touchdown run. That was awesome. I love that game too.
Yeah, like Mike.
An embarrassment of riches. I remember that was the call by Herb Street and Fowler.
Yeah, great absolutely. Marcus Edmond did push the guy out for Louisville on the 4th down to seal the game. Yep.
Yeah, he saved the season twice that year. Yeah, the interception against NC State and and pushing James Quick out of bounds.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about
on that 4th down.
T-Law spanking Bama in the Natty was my favorite.
Hey, stop cheating. I said pre-2016.
Yeah, pre-2016. But
if this was just favorite Clemson games of all time.
Yeah,
a lot of 2015 to 2020 would be on this list.
Yeah, that was a great game to watch. No doubt about
it. Yeah. Obviously, that's one of the greatest wins in Clemson history for sure.
No doubt about it. Okay, let me ask you this, Jordan. We talked about kind of the greatest games to watch if you're a Clemson fan pre-2016. What? So if I asked you your most memorable loss, what's the first one that comes to mind as a Clemson fan overall? Not just recently, but like the first game that comes to mind.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because I have to.
The most I to this day, the worst loss is the probably okay. Well, the most memorable loss is a tie. I don't want to say a tie. No, there's a true number one, and then there's two that are like right there almost, and they're kind of tied. And it's 2013 Florida State is number one. That is still the that loss hurt still. You just like rips a hole in my heart when I think about it, because it was just I don't think I've ever gotten so hyped up and like hyped myself up for a game and gotten so thoroughly like disappointed and just like my heart ripped out of my soul.
I'm trying to tell you, dude.
My college roommate, he that game was on his birthday, so he had to.
No. Oh
so
no. So he's got to celebrate that every year.
He had to. Yeah, he like his friends got him like Clemson stuff, and he was all excited. His parents. Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. So, full disclosure, that is the game that comes to mind. If anyone ever proposes the question that I just proposed to you, that is the first game that ever comes to mind for me. Is the 2013 Florida State Clemson game when we got absolutely drugged up and down Death Valley, 51-14.
And it wasn't even. It was over from.
It was over
the
from Jump Street. From the first drop, the first play.
Yeah.
Like it was over from Jump Street. I remember being stationed in Texas at the time.
Oh my God!
And watching it at a sports bar with a couple buddies, and I was like, I had to walk out. I was so pissed off. I was just. It sticks with me to this day. That is the first game that comes to mind when it comes to one of the worst losses in Clemson history to me.
Yeah, that was.
And I know a lot of people.
Top 5 matchup. It was hyped up. Clemson was, Clemson was one of the team that a lot of people were picking to win that game, to win the conference.
Man, that was wow.
That was a moment that was like this program isn't ready yet.
Yeah, I was just like, what are we doing?
We made a lot of strides, but we're not ready yet.
I was like, we don't even deserve to be on the same field as this team. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, no, brutal. And then before I collapse on stream, the two games that are tied for second, is one we've already talked about, the Orange Bowl. And it's the farther removed we get from that Orange Bowl, the less it stings, obviously. And look, obviously everything that came after, it's like if I had to go through it all over again.
I feel like the Orange Bowl doesn't sting as much because of what we got out of that Orange Bowl, right? Kevin Steele got fired, Brent Venables comes in, and we quite possibly go on the greatest defensive run that Clemson's ever seen in program history. So I think it's easier to deal with that West Virginia beatdown that we had in the Orange Bowl because of what we gained from it. We have 2 national titles because of what West Virginia did to us in that Orange Bowl. Yeah. I truly believe that. Like, no doubt about it. We have 2 national titles in our possession right now because of what West Virginia did to us in that Orange Bowl.
For sure.
We don't have those 2 national titles without Brent Venables. And he would not have been hired had that game not have happened. So, yeah, it's easier to deal with because of, I guess what we got out of it and the results after that game. So, what's your other one?
And the other one, man, there's and the more I think about it, there's a lot that could go on this list.
Yeah, a whole lot.
But man, this past season against South Carolina.
Yep, I was gonna put that on there too. That was my other one.
And before this season, it probably would have been It probably would have been 2007 against Boston College. Matt Ryan, who always turned into like Joe Montana when he played us.
Somehow.
That was that loss was brutal. That was a heart-wrenching loss.
Yeah.
You losing in Death Valley. But yeah, it's this past season against, and there's a couple, there's a couple games from the 5-game losing streak against South Carolina that still hurts me.
I mean,
Dylan Thompson coming in for Connor Shaw when he was injured and beating us in 2013. But this past season against South Carolina, I think
it has to be because we had no business losing the game.
Yeah.
Which is, that's kind of the kind of the propensity for, an epic loss or something that sticks with you for so long. I think this past season's loss to USC will stick with Clemson fans, at least myself. I'll just speak for myself, for a very long time, because we had no business losing the game. And it was such a winnable game up until the last second ticked off the clock. And I almost feel like we chose to lose that game.
Yeah.
Not that any coaching staff goes out and loses a game on purpose. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that at all. But it's just like when you sit back and look at the entirety of the Clemson South Carolina game this past season, how can you say that Clemson didn't just give that game to South Carolina? We absolutely did.
Yeah.
We gave them the game. And I don't understand it. I don't get it. I'll never get it. I'll never get over it. It won't matter. Just like I'll never get over 2013 FSU. No matter how many times we beat the crap out of them after that. We absolutely destroyed FSU numerous times after that, and we'll absolutely destroy South Carolina numerous times after this season. But I'll never get over, some of those games, and that's one of them that will always, kind of stick in the craw as a Clemson fan, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
there's no way to justify that loss.
No, just a confluence of just really out of character, awful.
I mean,
just from a coaching, decision making, quarterback play.
How do we
execution?
How do we beat South Carolina 30-0 in one of our worst seasons in the past decade? But we lose last season.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it just doesn't make sense. If we were going to lose to South Carolina and I had to bet, it would have been the 2021 season.
Yeah.
It was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
We were,
banged up
on
the road,
injured.
Yeah.
We had, massive amounts of injuries. We had a terrible season, according to Clemson's, new standard
Yeah.
when it comes to football. There wasn't a lot of motivation heading into the game. South Carolina was at home. They had a lot of reason to believe that they could have beaten that Clemson team, and yet we beat them 30-0. And then we come in the very next season and lose. Like, it just, I don't know, man. I got nothing. I got nothing for that game.
It is amazing that game. How that team scored 30. Technically, we only scored 23 because the offense scored 23 because pick six that Clemson got early in the game. But how that team even scored 23 with an 8 for 29 performance from your quarterback, I don't know. That was the most. It is still. Given the circumstances and everything and everything that was on the line in that game, I think it's safe to say this was the most. This South Carolina game this past season was the most inexcusable loss in Dabo's career.
Yeah,
I really can't think of it. Even losing to 4-8 Syracuse in 2017. I mean, Kelly Bryant had a concussion. It was on the road. Yeah. It was a weird game, and there was a lot of circumstances that were going against Clemson that were outside of their control in that game. It was just a really awful, unfortunate game. But this was just total system failure.
Yeah, it was
especially in the second half, brutal.
It was a coaching failure. It was an execution failure. It was just an epic failure on all levels of the team. And one of the most frustrating things that I found as a Clemson fan, and we didn't have this knowledge privy when, we did our post-game live reaction, which was probably one of our epic ones following that South Carolina loss. But one of the things that I found most frustrating as a Clemson fan was just the coaching staff's ability to just absolutely just blurt out nonsense to the media.
They were unlistenable after that game.
Brandon Streeter was talking absolutely crazy. Dabo Swinney was talking crazy, talking about it's not DJ's fault. He can't catch the ball. Like, bro, nope. I'm not gonna get into it. I'm not gonna get in on a tangent with that one. But you know what I'm talking about. It was like they were just like you can't take yourself serious after that game if that's your post game press conference. Like,
yeah, Matt DJ ran his ass off.
Yeah. Yeah,
but no, Edward, you're right. It was definitely not 100% on DJ for sure.
No, it wasn't.
That game, you could have won that game just simply by just not putting the ball in DJ's hands and doing what had been working the entire game. But
I don't know if anyone knows this, but last season we did have a guy named Will Shipley, and also a guy named Phil Maffa that we probably could have just handed the ball off to 87 times in that game and won.
I think Clemson's win probability would have been less hurt if they had punted every possession. I haven't done the research on this, but I have a feeling their win expectancy would have actually been better if they punting every possession.
And that's saying a lot because we didn't have a great punting game last season.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, you just go back to our post-game live reactions where, I had several spouts where, I was unhappy with our punting game last season. So
brutal.
I don't know, man. That's a tough one. That's one that I don't know what that will ever get over. I guess time heals all wounds, allegedly. But
it's
again,
gonna take some time to get over that.
I'm still salty over 2013 FSU, and we've beaten the crap out of them for a decade since.
Hell, we beat them 59-10 in their place.
And I'm still not over 2013.
Yeah.
So I don't know if time heals all wounds, but that's what they say. So I guess we'll go with that. I don't know. But I mean, I guess that's the show tonight. That's I think that's all we had planned, Jordan. Unless the comment section has a rabbit hole to take us into, I think we'll wrap it up for the night. We got 18 people in here right now, which is absolutely insane. It's literally like 11:16 at night, and we still
doing up.
Yeah, what are you college football degenerates doing in here watching me and Jordan at 11 o'clock at night? Don't you guys have a life to live tomorrow? I mean,
No.
What are you guys doing?
Of course not. Okay, we're all sick college football fans, Clemson football fans.
Yeah, we all got the itis. We got the college football itis. We can't help ourselves, but we really do appreciate you guys getting in here, supporting our show, supporting the channel here, the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. I think we are at how many subscribers are we at now, Jordan?
I believe we are at 4.34K. So steadily climbing.
Yeah, 4.34. We hit 4,000 back in December, and we are steadily climbing. Hopefully, we can hit 5,000 come this season sometime. We appreciate you guys getting in. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share our videos. If you guys are in any sort of Clemson groups or Facebook pages or anything like that, please share our videos. We really appreciate it. We love chopping it up about Clemson football. We love chopping it up about ACC football. And we love interacting with you guys. So the more of you guys that come in, the better the conversation gets. So with all of that said, we appreciate you guys coming out tonight. But I think that's all that we have. We've been on the show for 2 hours. I think we're going to get off of here. Jordan, go ahead and send our wonderful audience off for the night.
Yeah, guys. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. It's an adjustment, with the new start time, but obviously some things that and going on, especially in TPC's life, that made this have to be the new schedule. But we had a really good turnout tonight. Hope to see you guys again next week, same time, 9 p.m. Thursday. So we'll see you then. Yep.
As always, don't forget the Voice of College Football has launched merch. They got coffee cups, sweatshirts, T-shirts, so on and so forth. Visit the main channel at the Voice of College Football. And until next time, as always, I am Tiger Paul Craven. He is Jordan Bowman. We will see you next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. for the All In Show.
Later, guys.
Later.